Oh, great. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Bridging the Gap Between Tourism and the Community in the Face of a Disaster. Welcome and thank you for attending. I'm Eric Markson, Board Chair, President of the Sonoma County Hospitality Association, and along with the Board of Directors, we'd like to thank you for attending today. Over the past few years, the Hospitality Association has offered important forums and seminars on a range of topics, some that are business to business, others that are on education or training. Today is more focused on safety and disaster preparedness. We do the safety and disaster preparedness seminars and forums as complementary to the community, and we do them over the years with input from leaders in our industry. So today we'll be able to talk to some of those leaders and kind of get the conversation started. The other thing I can say about the timing for today's forum is that I wish to thank everyone for asking and praying for rain. It's clear that when we all work together, big things can happen. So thank you very much. That drought was taxing and difficult and disastrous for many people. We have an excellent panel today, and I want to thank them all for all they do and for being here today. We do need to be thoughtful of everyone's time, so please, as Nate has mentioned, put your questions in chat and we'll do our best to get to those questions. And please note that this is also the beginning of the conversation. We're going to bring up subjects today we may not have the answers for, but we need to bring the dialogue. We need to bring that discussion up, and this is a good forum and a good place to do that, and we appreciate you being here to help us with that discussion. At this time, I'd like to introduce our moderator, who's been described to me as dedicated and resourceful. Community Preparedness Program Manager of the County of Sonoma, Department of Emergency Management, Dr. Nancy Brown. Nancy, if you can take it from here, I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Eric, and so excited to be here today and to be part of this important discussion. Briefly about me, I earned my Ph.D. at Massey University in Wellington, New Zealand. My dissertation looked at building a set of disaster resilience indicators for the tourism sector, specifically focusing on lodging for survey and interview elements. This research was done in the year following the Kaikoura earthquake, which was a 7.8 magnitude earthquake at the tip of the South Island. In this research, it became clear that tourism efforts must be integral to government and community efforts, and networks must be developed in advance of events to maximize coordination and collaboration across sectors, especially when it comes to information flow. Today, we're joined by a great panelist group. We have Priscilla Abercrombie, who is the board chair of COPE Northern Sonoma County. Now, COPE stands for Citizens Organized to Prepare for Emergencies. So this is a grassroots organization that has really taken off in Northern Sonoma County and other parts of the county. We also have Claudia Vecchio, the president and CEO of Sonoma County Tourism, who's going to talk to us about bridging the gap between tourism and community. Lisa Graves, the president of Beautiful Places, also a board member of the Sonoma County Hospitality Association. We have Joe Bartolomei, pardon me butchering your name, Joe, owner of Farmhouse Inn in Forestville, also a board member of Sonoma County Tourism and Sonoma County Hospitality Association. And Kimberly Robertson, Safari West Safety and Disaster Planning Director. I want to open the conversation by just taking a brief moment to explore the topic in a general sense. We have, over the last few years, had a number of conversations about preparedness for individuals, for businesses, continuity of operations discussions, and the like. This group had a great workshop on business preparedness at Safari West just before the pandemic. I know many attending today have made great strides in the way they prepare for all hazards. Through this all, we've had the unfortunate opportunity to put these plans to the test, to revisit assumptions, to learn lessons, and to redesign our plans. We know that no plan can be foolproof, and what we plan for is not always what happens. But the plan gives us a foundation to work from, and that's really the critical piece here. At Emergency Management, we recognize the intrinsic part community groups play in responding to disaster. These folks are the true first responders, and the number of communities forming groups for preparedness grows daily, and that's amazing. So too, our hospitality partners contribute greatly to feeding, housing, and caring for people on some of their lowest days following a disaster. But still, we see gaps in our planning, questions that are hard to answer, as resources are just not developed to solve all of the different problems. This conversation is the beginning of a new connection of community residents and tourism partners. I've heard many times, what about tourists? Will they know what to do? Certainly, tourists at hotel properties have a great fallback position. They have staff, but what if they're out and about when something happens? Will they get the information they need? And what about tourism renting local spots? What do they know? What do they have? Day guests, how will they get information? How vulnerable are they when a disaster strikes? So today we have an opportunity to explore some of these concepts together, learn what's already being done, and see where we can connect some other dots to answer other questions and solve potential issues. So first, I'd like to go ahead and introduce Priscilla Abercrombie, who is going to talk to us about what the COPE organization is doing. Take it away, Priscilla.
Great, thank you. Appreciate it. It's wonderful to be here today with all of you and really start a discussion on this really important topic. I'm hoping you can see my screen. We're good? All right, wonderful. So as Nancy said, to prepare for emergencies. And I was involved in founding the Fitch Mountain community. And shortly after, Northeast Geyserville and Mill Creek founded communities, and the three of us really came together to start Northern Sonoma County COPE. So that's kind of a little historical piece about that. The mission really is to help residents, families, and you'll notice visitors prepare, respond, and recover from emergencies. This program was started in Oakmont and with a lot of help from Santa Rosa Fire Department and American Red Cross, as well as funding through those agencies. And we took it and we ran with it and kind of made it applicable to what was happening on Fitch Mountain, very different than what was happening at Oakmont. And that's what we like about this program is it's very adaptable. And many of the communities that have adopted COPE have elements of the hospitality industry embedded in them, as you all well know. We have a board of directors now. We have become a 501c3, and many of these people you may recognize. Most of these people also come from COPE communities, and others, as Nancy Brown, as you met, is from the Department of Emergency Services. We're blessed with a really, really wonderful, robust, intelligent, experienced board. I couldn't ask for more people passionate about our mission. And we're grateful Chief Turbeville is here with us this morning as well. Alma Bowen is from Nuestra Comunidad and doing a wonderful job working with our Latinx community, as well as our community at large. So, oopsie, are you not gonna behave? There we go. And it caught up way, there we go. All right, so we serve as a fire safe council. We have that designation through the California Fire Safe Council. And as I said, we became a nonprofit primarily so that we could serve as a fiscal sponsor for our communities that are trying to do projects. We meet monthly as a COPE community, and we bring together our leaders from various COPE communities, our fire officials, local government, nonprofits, law enforcement, people that are passionate about emergency preparedness. And we also offer an office hours monthly. It's kind of like the old office hours where people can drop in and learn about how to start a COPE program or problem solve with some of us that have been doing this for a while. We are a public forum. Our main purpose is to educate. And we also, because we've had 4 fires in the last 3 years, we also serve as a place for debriefing after fires so that our communities can, and our first responders can sit in a room together and talk about what happened and how it can be better next time. and so that we can all really work together to make it better. And we are a source of information sharing. We, across Northern Sonoma County, share information. As you can see from the picture, we really represent District 4. We had to draw lines somehow, and that's how we determined our lines in this case. And we have about between 30 to 40 COPE communities throughout Northern Sonoma County. We've really taken off from those 3 original that I told you about to many more now. We spearhead a lot of emergency preparedness projects. I'll share that kind of work with you in a minute here. We do pursue funding opportunities, as I said, and we advocate for policy change related to emergency preparedness when we are so inclined. Why develop a COPE program? What is this all about? Well, I really want you to understand that this is really a grassroots framework. This didn't come from any of our fire departments. It didn't come from any place else. It really came from the communities that said, we need to be better prepared. This is really scary. We're having fires where our first responders can't come because they're so busy taking care of business that they can't come take care of us. So we need to learn how to take care of ourselves. We need to have plans. We need to be able to communicate. And that's why we came together. So we support the development of individual response plans, as well as neighborhood and community preparedness plans. And that's where the hospitality industry is super important, right? We need to bring us all together and work together on those emergency plans. And there are many assets involved on both sides, right, for supporting each other. We're endorsed by fire departments and law enforcement and county government, which is fantastic. Map Your Neighborhood is another program very similar to COPE that has really brought people together and is organizing more in West Marin, which is really cool. So we all work together. We don't compete with each other. We really try to support each other's work. Really enables us to be more self-reliant, to help our first responders. Remember that we have people coming from all over the country, sometimes all over the world, to come and respond to these fires. They don't know our areas. They don't know where the short-term rentals are. They don't know where the people are with disabilities and the people that may have other special needs. So it really helps for us to provide that information. And as you know, it's so much easier to be prepared when we all work together. And it's an opportunity for all of us to get to know each other. And I have to say on Fitch Mountain, it's been amazing getting to know our neighbors and really understanding who the people are that are down the block. And it's been a great journey doing that. So there's 7 steps to his COPE program. I'm not going to go through all of these steps, but let me just summarize for you. So the first thing we do is to identify where community boundaries are, and Fitch Mountain has community boundaries. I'm just using that as an example because that's the community that I'm from. Once you figure out where those boundaries are, then you really need to build a team. You know, who are going to be the community leaders? And when you divide that community into neighborhoods, who are your neighborhood leaders going to be? And that develops over time. It doesn't happen very quickly, but it does happen very organically usually. Then we want to survey the neighbors to figure out who it is that is in our neighborhood. What kind of assets might they have? Do they have a chainsaw, for instance? Do they have a swimming pool? Do they have medical expertise? And what are the things that they might need help with? Do they have somebody that maybe doesn't have transportation or is limited in their mobility or their hearing or something like that, that we need to be aware of and try to help? And then we meet and try to conduct meetings with our residents to help educate them and get them to know our emergency personnel and create an emergency communication plan. How are we going to talk to each other when something happens? We had some experience with that just recently with the flooding and with trees down here on Fitch Mountain. We used GroupMe to communicate with each other and keep our residents knowing that their power line's down and that the road is blocked and you need to go out South Fitch instead of north and those kinds of things. And then we assess our community risks, either through mechanisms such as FireWise or community wildfire protection plans, whatever it takes for us to sit down and say, on Fitch Mountain, what we really need is fill in the blank, whether it's clearing vegetation from our only ingress and egress, which is Fitch Mountain Road, or whatever it is. We need to work on those projects. And then educate, really be an opportunity for education in our communities about how to be better prepared, and then maintain those relationships, right? And those plans, and that assessment is ongoing. So that's just a summary. I wanted to share with you, I talked about in step 3, the survey. And this is an example of, again, that crossover of living in a community where people from the hospitality industry come into the community, right? And that overlaps. And this is one of the ways that we changed the survey that was originally done with Oakmont, because we have vacation rentals in our neighborhood. We have full-time rentals, and we have part-time residents, right? People that just come for the summer. We've got a myriad of people in our community. We want to identify those people and figure out how the best ways are to communicate with them. So this is an example of how we've adapted our form to look for offsite homeowner or the rental management company, so that we have a way to get a hold of folks, right, when something's happening. So this is an example of how we can work together. I also wanted to share with you some of the projects that we've done, just to give you a taste of what we do. Why is COPE an asset to a community? Why would we want to work with this group? And this is an example. So as I mentioned, community wildfire protection plans and Firewise are ways that we assess our communities and really put together projects that we think are important, that are going to make our communities safer. We collaborate with the local agencies on evacuation plans and drills. I know COPE communities that have worked with vineyard companies and had evacuation routes through those vineyards so that they could go to safety if they needed to. That is a really great example of how we've cooperated together. We've developed pre-attack maps with our COPE communities. This is something that Chief Turbeville has spearheaded. It's been an amazing amount of work around identifying water sources and evacuation routes and clarifying where roads are or not. And as some of you know, the county maps don't really reflect a lot of times where those roads are and the names of those roads, et cetera. We promote community chipper days. This is another thing that certainly those who are embedded in our communities could utilize to get defensible space around their properties. We know, just like our neighbors that don't do defensible spaces, we also have people that have rentals in our neighborhoods that do not have defensible space. And we would welcome the opportunity to work on that together. We also partner with community-based nonprofits to reach our Latinx communities and our other communities that are hard to reach. We have crafted and installed with our Eagle Scouts and a local architect a sign that talks about fire dangers, so that people coming to our area, so again, visitors in particular, would know, hey, this is a fire danger area and we're at particularly high risk right now. So lighting a fire on the beach on Fitch Mountain probably wouldn't be a good idea today. Those kinds of things, we want to spur those ideas in our visitors. We've implemented GroupMe as a communication tool that we have with our first responders as well as our COPE leaders. And that information, again, is tiered like a phone tree so that it goes down to our residents. We are seeking vegetation management funding for vegetation management projects in our COPE communities. We are finding that our county does not have the money to conduct the vegetation management that needs to happen. So we've sought our own funding to do that. We've developed a smoke ready program. This is something that is new, that's spearheaded recently. Again, that would be useful for visitors. And finally, we've created an emergency preparedness program for seniors. And this is how you get a hold of us. These are some of the things that, again, we're doing, and we would love to intersect with the rest of you on. So thank you. I will leave it at that.
Priscilla, it does look like we got just a couple of questions in the chat during your presentation. I don't know if you wanted to address them real quick, but the main one we got is, what would you say is the optimum neighborhood group for most effective action? And then that got seconded. We're looking for group size for an effective COPE group. If you wanted to speak on that real quick, that's from Colby and it looks like Ben from the Windsor Chamber.
Yeah. So, what we found is that it's very organic. Again, it could start with you just working with the folks on your block, the 5 houses around you, and then expanding outward to become a larger community. So I really recommend that people start that way. Again, it's more an opportunity for people to be grassroots about it, so that it comes from the community, that it's a bunch of neighbors that say, hey, this is important to me, I want to do this, then jump from there. I hope that makes sense.
Can you hear me now? Sorry, I was having trouble unmuting. Thank you so much, Priscilla. That was just awesome. And next, I would like to introduce Claudia, who is going to talk a little bit about Sonoma tourism and what they're doing and connecting the community and what they're doing to help prepare members and their association.
Good morning, everyone. I'm thrilled to be here today. Oh, geez, I'm frozen. There we go. Thrilled to be here, and thank you, Priscilla. That was incredibly interesting information. I mean, all of you on this call, you've heard from us in the past, and our continued efforts toward becoming a more resilient destination. And I'll kind of talk about our partner ecosystem here and as we go through this presentation, and it includes all of you. But you'll see that we haven't included the COPE groups, and how does that intersection work? And I look forward to those conversations as we continue this, really our quest toward being a super resilient and partner-driven destination. Through the past 4 years, we've had to pull out all the stops in terms of disaster preparedness. And really in 2017, when we were all sort of taken by surprise by the firestorms, it really was a wake-up call for the tourism industry to make plans and to make sure that we were prepared for whatever would face us in the future. And little did we know back then how many times we would need to be called upon to respond quickly and effectively and thoughtfully in disasters. So what I'm going to do today, again, many of you have heard this before, but I just want to quickly go through what Sonoma County Tourism does in a disaster. So as we're working with partners, there is an understanding of the cadence and the way we respond to a disaster, whether it be a wildfire. And I think it's really appropriate that we're having this conversation during October, because that is really the month that we are on high alert as an organization. Nobody travels, we're all here, we're all ready, and we go through our plan and make sure everybody understands their roles. But this is really such a critical month for Sonoma County in terms of disaster preparedness. So we definitely are interested in making sure we all are prepared. Okay, next slide. Here we go. So just 3 quick, and I know I don't want to take a whole bunch of time, because again, we've shared this before, but how SCT plans for and responds to a crisis, how we work with our partners during a crisis, and then future opportunities that seem that they're really going to be more important than ever. So first, how we prepare and respond to a crisis. There's 3 phases to any crisis. They will definitely change, and they'll morph, and they'll look differently depending on the type of crisis. But from our standpoint, crisis and managing a crisis has to be one that's a process, because the minute you get into a crisis, emotions take over. So if there isn't a really well understood process for responding to a crisis, everything, and I mean everything, will get in the way of accomplishing that goal. So it's critically important that these phases be well understood, and you sort of do them in a mechanical way so that there's a, that emotional piece doesn't really get involved here. So we always go through, we have a crisis plan, we update it frequently. We had a number of new staff folks join SCT recently, so we went through this again with everyone, assigning key roles, helping everybody understand what happens during a crisis. So we have a fill-in-the-blank crisis plan that's available on sonomacounty.com and our partner portal. Encourage everybody who doesn't have a plan to kind of look at this and if it's of interest to you, to create one for your own organization. So, these are the steps we go through. I won't go through each of these, but know that it's seriously important for your organization to have a plan and to have one that everybody thoroughly understands. So when a crisis happens, we've now, and many of you probably have subscribed to Watch Duty, which is an app that you can get on your phone, and it really alerts you of every fire that is identified through the multiple camera systems we now have in the county, which is fantastic. But as soon as it gets to the point where it looks like, and this is in a fire situation, that fire is elevating into one that's a crisis, we will launch into action. And those first 24 to 48 hours are critically important to initiate that plan. You know that plan, you're ready to roll with it. You identify the issues that are impacting the roles in that plan. So, every crisis will have a variety of, potential impacts. So you really want to be very careful about assessing that so you can mobilize your people and your plan to the extent that needs to happen. So also during that time, you take stock of the situation by, really looking at all the impacts of the potential impacts, and then engage your communication channels. So understanding then how you move very quickly into communicating with partners, in this case, with all of you. And so we're ready to be a support and a resource for everyone. In each of these phases, we look at 3 specific areas. We look at how we're going to support our community. So how do we support our partners, our first responders, crisis management workers? And really, we identified that support. And quite honestly, during this first 24 to 48 hours, that's the most important thing, that we're sure we're part of the effort to help mitigate this incident. Second, to educate, begin educating stakeholders, customers, and key constituents on the situation. As you well know, we've been through this many times. The misinformation that gets out there is just enormous. So from our standpoint, to make sure we are educating what's truthful and putting guardrails around this crisis in such a way that it, as you know, once there's a fire, and even if there's a fire in Southern California, customers think all of California is on fire. So we need to begin to be very truthful, honest, and mitigate the misinformation. And then we look at selling. I mean, as a destination marketing organization, that's our bread and butter. But during these first 24 to 48 hours, of course, we halt everything that's happening. And then we had the day 2 to containment part of the phase. And again, we look at continually assessing the situation, our collaboration with partners. At this point, the main thrust of the crisis is sort of abating, although we know that these fires continue and they grow and they have their own set of fire behaviors. But during this next period, we're collaborating with partners, determining communication needs, identifying channels, and all of that support that we can continue to do. And then, even though we are nowhere near a reopening strategy, we do need to take a look at what's going to happen during that particular phase. Again, we go through the support, educate, and sell exercise, and really determine how we are working in each of these areas, continuing to support, continuing to educate, and then looking at that reopening strategy. I'll go through that in a second. Then reopening. Sonoma County Tourism is always going to have a different cadence for that reopening message than our partners will. So, we want to, and please, as a partner, understand that representing the destination, we're going to be slower to the reopening message than you will be as an individual property or, a group of properties. So understand that we're always looking at what those reopening messages are going to be, but it will be at a different timing than will all of you. So we look at how we're going to put out the welcome mat, look at how we continue to monitor those media and social messages to make sure the correct information is getting out there. And information then just it's everywhere at that point. So we need to help mitigate it as much as we can, and then continuing support. And again, we look at support, educate, and sell, and how are we continuing to support our first responders and all, continuing to correct information. And then we do begin the selling process again. Put out the welcome mat, tell people Sonoma County is open for business. Then during a post-crisis, and we really are working at how we're driving business, how we continue to monitor the impacts of media, social media, the UGC that gets out there and how visitors and others are talking about the destination. And so it's really important for us to continue to monitor how Sonoma County is being conveyed. Again, we go through support, educate, and sell, and really determine the cadence and how we work with each of those different areas. So so as we now look at how we work with partners, understanding how we're operating as an organization, hopefully that kind of gives an idea of the cadence of what we will always do. The tempo at which each of those phases will unfold will change. I will tell you during COVID, and I see COVID as very definitely, as you all do, probably as a crisis, but that first phase happened fairly quickly, probably within the first month of COVID, but we are in a protracted second phase. So we are continuing to work on that monitoring piece of COVID. And, we've gone through in and out of recovery a couple of times. Now we're really working on our recovery and strategy as we look at both leisure and business and all of the different components that come back into Sonoma County Tours. And so how we work with our partners, and our partners, I'm hoping we are doing a better job each time we have to respond to a crisis than we have done in the past. So if we are missing a group, or if we are missing, if you feel like we're not communicating in a way that we need to, please do let us know, because that is critically important to us as we all work through these crisis situations. So this is sort of the ecosystem with Sonoma County Tourism, our major organizations, our wineries, and the AVAs. We've had tremendous partnership with the AVAs, and it's really important that we communicate our message. They all have communications channels with our chambers and visitor center partners, and certainly lodging properties, restaurants, and retail. I will tell you that we are now going to look more closely at COPE groups and figure out how we can make that intersection between those groups and Sonoma County Tourism. We are always working at being better communicators. And so many of you have seen these pieces, but really through those partner alerts, through performance insights, we track the economic impact of all of our daily process, but certainly during a crisis, we will provide that as well. Again, if these pieces are not getting to you, please do let me know. During this past year, one program we did do, and thanks to Liza, thanks to the vacation rental industry and those who helped with our development of this, Nancy Brown at the county for sure. We all put together a packet of information that was developed for the vacation rental industry, but certainly can be used more broadly. And it includes, this is not the full page. Unfortunately, my snipping skills are pretty low. But anyway, so it has a general information page. It has the Sonoma County evacuation map. So a star can be put in that location where that property is located and the evacuation zone. As you know, we all need to understand our evacuation zones. And then we have some information on dealing with an earthquake, information for dealing with wildfires, And this packet then can be posted, it can be put in a notebook, it can be put digitally when people are, when they have, with the reservation confirmations, or there are just a number of ways that we can get this information out to visitors. We are always working to balance the fear of coming to Sonoma County with the knowledge of, the realities of coming to Sonoma County. And we are working and looking at our partners in the southern parts of the US that deal with hurricanes and those who deal with tornadoes. I mean, these have been long time issues and crisis seasons that they've dealt with, and really hasn't changed the tempo of their visitation much. But people do know if you go to Florida during hurricane season, you might get a hurricane. So it's that sort of same kind of messaging that we're doing. And so we're looking at ways we can continue to bridge the gap, work with our communities, work with all of you, and so we can put these puzzle pieces together as we deal with crises, because we know they're going to happen again, whether it be a wildfire or whether it be a major flood. We've dealt with those. Our friends up in Boise right now are dealing with the mass shooting. So you just never know what's going to happen. So, it's not just, okay, we can let our guard down now that we're past fire season till next year. No, we really always need to be on alert, be aware, get that plan in place, and make sure everybody knows how to respond when a disaster occurs. So looking forward to this conversation. Thank you for including Sonoma County Tourism. And, we're here to support the entire county and do what we can to keep us growing as a resilient, sustainable, and really thoughtful destination.
Thank you so much, Claudia. Awesome presentation. Certainly learned a lot of information there. Next, I'd like to introduce Liza, who is going to give us some information about who she is and how she connects to this. Liza.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Liza Graves, and I head up a company called Beautiful Places, which is a luxury vacation rental company with properties in Sonoma, Napa, and other destinations throughout the US and international destinations. And obviously, we are always extremely concerned when there is a potential disaster or a disaster that our guests are safe, that they have the information that they need, that we're able to communicate with them and get them to safety in the event of an evacuation. So we consider that a core responsibility of meeting the needs of our guests and ensuring that also they have the information so they're not putting other people in danger, and that they know how to get out. They know they got to keep their gas tank filled and things like that.
Nice. Thank you, Liza. And I'd like to introduce Joe from Farmhouse Inn to talk about how he connects to the conversation. Joe?
I'm Joe Bartolomei. I'm the owner, operator of the Farmhouse Inn. We're out in the 5th District here in Sonoma County on River Road. And I think we're kind of the epicenter of where all bad things happen. We have had, in the last 4 years, 3 evacuations due to fire. 2019, the front of the property flooded. We lost 5 of our rooms. We just this last Sunday had a 15-hour power outage. So we really, it's a little bit rough living out here, and it's critically important that you have a plan in place that both keeps your guests safe, but also keeps your employees safe. And that's something that we really learned along the way. It's twofold, because your employees have to feel like they know what they are able to do, that they understand that there's a plan, and they can quickly start executing against the plan. We created, I don't know if you can see this, this is our emergency procedure plan, and I'm happy to share this with anyone who would like it. I could probably have Aphrodite distribute a version of this to everyone if you wanted to see for yourselves. But it basically covers every different emergency scenario that we can anticipate, from a health emergency, a shooting emergency, a power outage, what to do in the event of a fire, an evacuation, and talks about chain of command, who, what the manager responsibility is, because emergency may happen at 1 in the morning, it may happen at 8 in the morning. So we basically have a list of who's in charge, and basically whoever's here that's on that list becomes the de facto in charge, so one of the others of us can get here. But it really talks about what to do, how to talk to the guest. It's got all the phone numbers for how to check for information. It really is one-stop shopping, so my employee can open up the book. On Sunday, they went to the section on power outage, and it had a whole narrative on what to tell the guest, what to communicate to the guest, how we get information, how we get that information to the guest, and then what we need to do once the power comes back on, because there's about 50 things that need to be turned back on. I mean, if maintenance isn't here and engineering isn't here, we can't make that happen. But I think, you know, here in Sonoma County, we've had so many emergencies, and it's in all of our best interest, I think, to have a really well thought out, thorough plan. It was a good exercise we did with our staff, and one that we try to revisit about every 6 months and just kind of go through and make sure everything's current. Staff, I think, enjoyed participating in it as well, because it gave them the opportunity to have a voice and say, well, I don't think this would work. I think we should do this instead. So it was a really collaborative process. So, you know, it really, you know, listen, we've been doing this 20 years. For the first 15 years, we did not have an emergency plan because we had virtually no emergencies. But we really, if anything, if we've learned anything over the last 4 years, it's just, I mean, it is just, we can pretty much count on something every 6 months, it feels like. And I hate to say that, but that just has been the track record. Yeah, so that's kind of our internal procedure here. And like I said, it's all about keeping our guests safe and keeping our employees safe and not panicking, and, you know, and really just having clear heads and being able to manage the situation to the best of our ability.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Joe. And then I'd like to introduce Kimberly from Safari West. Kimberly is also active in COPE, so she's a real intersection of activity here. And Kimberly, tell us a little bit about how you connect to this group.
Hi, I am Kimberly, and I do a lot of community outreach here. We're looking at how, not just how to keep our staff and our animals safe and our guests, but how to better communicate with those around us and how to become an asset to our community. We found lots of different opportunities and lots of ways to get better information. So it's been great.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kimberly. And Joe, a couple of things in the chat of people who would love to have you share that information with them. So we'll have to circle back with you to make sure that we can get that connected. So we have all the players here, and we have time here for a few questions. And I'd like to go ahead and start off with a couple of very general questions. And whoever would like to chime in, please chime in. So for some of our tourism partners, what would be most helpful from the community? What would you want from community members and from community like groups like COPE to help flesh out and make better your planning? Maybe Joe, Liza, Kimberly, Claudia.
Sure, I'll jump in. You know, I think one of the things, and I think Claudia touched on this, for us to all, I think, work better together. I feel like when we have an emergency, we're so micro-focused on like my property and my guests and trying to manage that situation that sometimes we don't really even know what's going on 20 feet, you know, away from the property. And so to have easy communication channels, whether it's a shared Facebook page or some sort of, you know, place where we can go and get information, because we're all frantically trying to get the same information. And so I feel like that's always the biggest hurdle is trying to track down good, reliable information. And then once you find a good piece of information, how do you share it with everyone in the community? It's not just the, you know, it's not just the hotel guests that we're trying to take care of. It's everyone in our community. So I don't know, Nancy, you know, how, if you have any sort of interface, but that would be something I think that would be hugely beneficial for us.
Yeah, I would second that. You know, each one of the crises, we've had to have multiple people assigned to monitor the news channels, monitor the, you know, Nixle and all the emergency channels. And in our case, because we have people that are maybe in Napa, they may be in Sonoma, you know, we have to get that information, then triage and reach out to the guests that are going to be most impacted shortly. You know, one of the things we have to tell our owners that aren't here is don't call us, because we're going to be dealing with the safety of our guests, and then we'll reach out to you as we can. It's pretty, at least in our industry, and for anyone in lodging, if you're reaching out to, it could be in the middle of the daytime, a hotel might have to reach out to 100 guests to let them know what's going on. So that timeliness and easy access to information is very important.
I'll chime in about COPE and how this might intersect. A couple of different ideas for you to think about. I can only talk about what's happening in northern Sonoma County, and I can say that again, we have, a communication platform that we're using, GroupMe, where we are getting information from our first responders, and that goes out to our community leaders. And then those community leaders send that information out to the neighborhood leaders who send it out to the residents. So clearly, if you have a property, this is again very regional. If there is a property in a COPE community, they could be part of that communication channel and can get information that's appropriate for that region, which I think is what people are hoping for, right? Is I want to know how this is impacting me here on the ground, not what's happening in Santa Rosa necessarily for northern Sonoma County, right? So that would be one way. The other thing is on our website, we do have a list of resources. So there's a direct link to all of the Sonoma County road closures and all of those key maps about where the fires are and all of that. So that's all in one place. Just some ideas for you.
And I would say also on sonomacounty.com in the partners section, there's a link to be prepared, and we have those links in there. I know someone had asked about having links to all of those resources, and those are in that place. But I love the idea of having a Facebook page or some place where we can put real-time information and just be, a resource for everybody during the crisis.
Awesome. And Priscilla, one question I have, what do you think about having tourism partners join their local COPE groups depending on where they are? Is that something that's workable to have a business be part of that residential community?
Yes, I totally think that would be an excellent idea. We've worked really hard to try to make that happen on Fitch Mountain and gotten very little movement on that, unfortunately. Just as an example, I'm sure other communities have been more successful. The other thing I would recommend is that people use the Watch Duty app. It's a brand new app that gives current information about what's happening on the ground. And I think that's what everybody wants to know.
And so another question, and maybe Priscilla and Kimberly, so the other side of that coin, what would be most helpful for you as community leaders with regard to what you would like to get and receive from the tourism sector in your area?
I can unmute myself, Nate, thanks. So, Joe was making a really good point about how it's important for him to take care of his guests and his staff. And he was getting to the point of taking care of the community around him, right? And that's the piece that from my perspective, I would love is if we work together as a community and also, again, protected the community around some of the hospitality industry, just because it's so broad, right? It could be a vineyard, it could be anything. So yeah, let's all work together to be safer. And I think we can do that really well and support each other in a very positive way.
Yeah, I would say Tracy Koch, who runs our CTA programs, now morphed into the Accredited Hospitality Professional Program. And as that grows, that will really be a sort of a army of tourism professionals who are out there who can connect with their local COPE communities. So Priscilla, Tracy's going to reach out to you and see how we can incorporate the Accredited Hospitality Program, which is really designed to train our industry on a number of different things. But this is part of their foundational information. So as that grows, I think that would be a really good resource and group of people to help integrate community with tourism.
This is Liza. One thing I just noticed a comment that Eric made, which I think is accurate, that people do want direct communication, particularly tourists, because it's a lot of it, you know, we know the radio stations, we know all of that. It's a lot of information to wade through. So we do tell we get at least 2 cell phone numbers for every guest party, regardless of the time of the year. We did learn in 2017 that we had one phone number, and we couldn't reach some of the guests and residents, or they were fleeing. So two phone numbers. We also tell guests to answer the landline. Sometimes people don't answer the landline because they think the call's not for them. And so we tell them to answer the landline in the event of an emergency. And that this way we know we can, you know, there's a voice that's going to give people very precise information about that property, the area where they're located in, and how to get out, in addition to whatever we have in the house or we've sent them prior to the emergency event. People they're not necessarily, if they're terrified, they're not going to rummage around, you know, to look for the printed instructions necessarily.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I see we're getting close to time, so I do want to kind of do a quick recap and then hand it back to Eric. But thank you all so much. And I think I've seen already so many really exciting connections happen here today. So a really brilliant conversation and a really brilliant opportunity to make some really new and profound steps forward in how we care for the entire community, and really look at it as what gets a little old and tired, but is really the most important thing, is that we have a whole community approach to what we do. And certainly tourism sector, the community groups connecting together in this kind of a way is a really great step forward to that. So I thank all of our panelists and all of the folks that came here today to hear and learn more about this, and hope we continue this conversation offline and maybe in forums like this in the future. And I'd like to hand it back to Eric now to close this out.
Kimberly, do you have a question that we were going to ask?
I did want to add, so I think that Watchpoint is great, or Watch Duty is great, but I believe that it's focused mostly on fire. So if we could see about getting something expanded to include floods and earthquake information, so we get real-time facts, I think it would be quite helpful. Thank you.
Perfect. Again, this is the beginning of the conversation. This is a conversation that I feel we've addressed a fair amount of topics that are going to have to evolve, but also I feel that the overall feeling of working together was very powerful, working together and solving some solutions that unfortunately have kicked us in the butt. A couple of quick notes. Joe's binder very helpful. So we'll have the Hospitality Association get a copy of that, and people can reach out to Sonoma County Hospitality, and Debbie and I can work on getting them a copy of that so that we can do that. The COPE information, again, we'll work with the people at our COPE community to have that information also, so that you can go onto the Sonoma County Hospitality website and see where your COPE community is. And the more that the COPE communities get healthier, the better we are as a community and whole. And I'll just close with the comment that was made repeatedly, and that is, letting our guests know that they're in a wonderful neighborhood, that they're in a fantastic place, is something we do every day. So just letting them know that we welcome them as a neighbor, but expect them to treat us the same way. So any other questions? We'll kind of go through the recap offline, but I see we're coming to the end of the meeting here. So again, the panelists, you did a fantastic job, and I really appreciate everybody being here this morning. And like I say, keep up the good work. Very proud of you. Thank you.